Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Uncle Marv podcast. Tonight, I am pleased to be bringing you a non-beach person in terms of satellite beach high school that I went to. I've made a move over to Palm Beach Atlantic, which is the college that I attended and got my undergrad degrees in because, yes, I did get 2 degrees at Palm Beach Atlantic. I only used one. So the other one basically was nothing. But tonight I am joined by Todd Shoemaker. Todd, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Okay. So just to preface everyone, so I've had Todd on a podcast before that was on my tech podcast, even though we pretty much talked all personal stuff there. But Todd and I might seem a little familiar, so don't worry about that. I will try to do my best to get everybody in the loop and hopefully have no behind the scenes jokes or anything like that. So Todd, if you can help me keep everybody on pace, we'll do that as best we can. And just so that you know, we are live on both YouTube and the Facebook. So as people join in, they might want to pop in some questions there, Todd. I'll pop them up on the screen so you can see them and respond. And folks, Todd is actually mobile. He's not at his usual homestead, so he doesn't have the usual setup. I think you're doing this on your iPhone, aren't you?
I'm actually doing this on my Kindle.
Oh, the Kindle.
Yeah.
All right. So new experience there. Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. So why don't we start with the obvious? Since you're not home, where are you?
I am in Crawfordsville, Florida, which is right outside of Tallahassee.
Tallahassee. I know Crawfordsville.
Yeah. So
what are you doing up there? The Knowles aren't playing?
Well, I'm not a Knowles. I'm a Gator, so.
This interview's over.
But no, my wife's family, her dad, brother, and sister live up here.
Okay.
So we came just to visit since she's working from home these days. She can work from anywhere. So we figured we would take a few days and travel up here.
Okay. Well, let me ask, how is Laura and how are you guys doing during the pandemic?
We're doing fine. It really hasn't affected us much as, in a personal way. I'm still out and about doing my thing and not really, I'm being cautious when I'm out, but I'm not hunkered up at home.
Good. Is Laura there? I should have asked that to see if Laura would pop on here. I haven't talked to her in a while.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'll be able to get her on. She's just about to have dinner with her brother and his wife. So.
All right. Well, if she gets a chance to come and wave, tell her I'd love to see the wave. All right. So we're going to start backwards. Normally, we would start with the whole story of how we met and all of that stuff. But I want to start backwards because I really was expecting to go see you in March, finish a marathon, and that did not happen.
Yeah. Well, just a 5K, just a 5K that time.
I mean, who runs 5K anymore? Not many of us. I certainly don't. But let me ask, so did you keep running? Like, are you still running and working and doing all that?
Yeah, still running about twice a week, maybe 3 times a week on a good week. And let's see, March, about a week after that 5K, I actually did complete a half marathon.
Okay.
So.
Oh, I didn't know that. You didn't post, or I didn't see it. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention.
So did a half marathon late March.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
survived.
Yes. So now let's catch everybody up to speed because running was something that you were not expected to be doing many years ago, right?
No, I wasn't. Well, to be honest, I wasn't expected to make it through 2019. So doctor said that 19 would be it for me. So we had a little surprise for him. So.
All right. So when did they tell you that specifically? Because
in April of last year, the doctors called Laura and I into the office and whenever you get that call of, hey, make sure you bring your wife, it's never
Right.
great news. And they said, you put up a good fight for 17 years, but at this point, you're in what was called a wasting syndrome, where my body had just gotten so tired and so beat up from treatments, from not being able to eat. At that point, I was down to 112 pounds, and not a good look when you're 6 feet tall. But they told us that they would be surprised if I made it through the year.
Mm.
So to be prepared, get us prepared for that. But, we've been prepared for that. I did my funeral arrangements years ago when they told me I had 24 hours to live. So we pretty much have all that taken care of.
All right. Well, without going into too much detail, which we can do if you want, but
Whatever you want, yeah.
I mean, this has got to be something where the doctors have to be beside themselves,
Yes.
trying to figure out, how to, I don't even say how to diagnose you, but how to deal with someone like you, basically the person nicknamed the man who refuses to die.
Right.
So,
Yeah. It's, I mean, my healing happened November 3rd of last year.
okay.
And, the doctors at this point, their explanation for this point is, well, you're in remission. And I'm like, well, the issues that I have don't go into remission. So, but, like I shared with the doctor, I said, if that's how you get paid, if that's the billing code that you need to use, remission, then you go do that, because I know I want you to get paid. But, even some doctors are like, have shared that they can't say it's a miracle because, of course,
Right.
a lot of them don't believe in that. But they definitely can't explain. They definitely can't explain how things, where I'm at now, to be able to talk. Because I know the last time you and I did the podcast, I was talking with a machine to help me speak, and I was on a feeding tube, and I don't have either of those anymore.
Right.
So,
I mean, a lot has changed, definitely.
Yes.
So, well, let's do this. Let's try to at least give everybody a picture of back then, because we had talked about all the things that you had been diagnosed with up
Right.
till then, starting with, way back in 2002, the
2003 diagnosed with cancer.
2003. Okay.
Well, 2002 diagnosed with 4 forms of crippling arthritis.
Right.
So
The arthritis. Right.
You were right. Yeah. And then to come to find out that was actually cancer, not arthritis.
Okay.
And did okay with that, had surgery, and came out flying colors, no chemo, no radiation.
That was the thymus cancer, right?
Yeah, that was the open heart surgery with the thymus cancer. Came out of that fine, did well for a number of years, and then 2007 was diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's.
Okay.
And still did okay with that, a little slower at that point, but I was doing fine. And then 2009, I was rushed to the hospital on a Friday night and given 24 hours to live. And I was diagnosed at that point with Myasthenia Gravis, which basically kind of eats your muscles away.
Right.
And affects your lung muscles and your breathing and everything else. And that's pretty much where I would say, my story, my journey's been a 17-year journey, but I would say from 2009 until my healing last year, those were the worst years right there, because every day was kind of touch and go. Like, I mean, I was from 2009 until last year. I mean, I was constantly considered in a critical state,
right,
by the doctors.
Now, before you continue, this is kind of where I re-enter the picture, because I hadn't seen you since college. It was 2014. So Correct. It was, I wouldn't say right after the myasthenia gravis, but that was in the midst of all of this stuff, and you hadn't yet, gotten on the feeding tube.
Right, and had not yet been on the machine to help me talk.
Right. And And even then, I mean, you weren't ailing. And I mean, it was something where you were out in public, you came out to eat with us. And
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like people would look at you and say, oh, something's wrong there.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. If you would have seen me in person last year, you would have, I mean, I've had several friends come up to me since and go, we really didn't, every time we saw you, we thought it would be the last time that we would see you. You looked that bad. So now I put on some weight and back to running. So,
all right. And then, so let's go ahead and go back. So I saw you in 2014,
yes.
and it was in 2015 that the next diagnosis came along.
Right, the gastroparesis, where my stomach muscles were basically paralyzed, so I couldn't digest anything going down. So it just kind of sat there.
And so couldn't digest, couldn't eat solid food, right?
Right. No solid foods, and even had trouble with fluids at the end. I wasn't drinking or eating any last year.
All right. So now when we talked last year, you hadn't gotten that bad. You had actually just finished a couple of cruises. You had just finished traveling up to see President Jimmy Carter at Sunday school.
Yes.
And you were supposed to be going back there. I mean,
and we did. Yeah, we went back in November.
Okay.
Yep. And well, I must say that my theater degree from Palm Beach Atlantic came in very handy the last few years, because I was really able to put on a good face for a lot of people, and that's just kind of my nature, to be more of an encourager and really just kind of trudge through things. But I mean, probably, even though we enjoyed Alaska, we enjoyed Cuba, we enjoyed hanging out with President Carter. I mean, even Laura and I both look back and go, yeah, that was kind of crazy to put my body through that. Right. But they're great memories, and I mean, we still talk to people from Plains, Georgia, and they still check in on me. And but yeah, a lot of what people saw last year was me putting on a very good face, because the pain level was terrible and I couldn't take pain meds because they mess with the myasthenia gravis. So I was usually, at that point, I was usually at a level 9 or 10 every day of pain.
I want to read you a thing that came up in the chat. I'm not going to throw it up there, but it says, okay. Todd, I have been feeling sorry for myself during this whole pandemic. You have put so much in perspective for me. Thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, well, thank you.
I mean, that is a sentiment that I think a lot of people would say to you on a regular basis. But, one of the reasons that I wanted to keep reaching out to you is I know that when I was going through, well, I can't even say that I've been going through stuff because it just isn't on the same level. But, there would be times where people would come up to me and say, how is it that you're, always so happy and cheerful and things never bother you?
Yeah.
And, it's one of those things where there's a lot of different reasons. One is it's just the choice that you make,
Yes.
And in your case, and in a lot of people's cases, it's the faith as well, too. When you are comfortable in your life and knowing what's in store for you afterwards, there's a calmness that comes over. It's just something where I want to make sure that people understand that, putting on a brave face, it's not easy.
No.
If you've got pain levels at 9 and 10, that's tough to do. But, even in your book, and I referenced this last time we talked, I forget what page it is, but you made a very strong statement of saying you didn't want to look or act sick.
Yeah. Well, Marvin, if I can just expound on that just a bit, when in 2009, when I was given 24 hours to live, everybody's always like, oh my gosh, like, what did you pray? It must have been some amazing prayer because you're still here. And I said, the only thing that God told me to pray was to never look sick and to never act sick. And I thought and I told Laura at the time, I said, she's like, what's going on? I said, the Lord just told me to pray never to look sick or to act sick. And she said, well, you're on morphine, so I'm not really sure if God's talking to you right now, or if that's just the morphine. But what's amazing about that, Marvin, is that since that day, as I used to average between 150 to 200 days a year in the hospital.
Right.
And from 2009 until last year, and I don't have names or anything like that, but I probably have had the chance to share my story and to share the gospel with probably over 1,000 people, because people will see me, especially when I would go in for treatments. They'd go, well, why are you here? You don't look sick. And I'd say, well, let me share a little bit with you about why I don't look sick. So, it's been a great way for me to share my story and to share my faith with people in a way that's not offensive.
Right. All right. Well, that's admirable. And obviously it's the way that you've lived this whole time. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's not something that's miraculous in when you look at the total picture.
Right.
So I guess that's the thing. All right. So now we talked about when I talked to you last, I forget when we did the podcast, but you were going to go back in November. You saw Jimmy Carter. You were also supposed to be meeting Johnny Bench.
I did meet Johnny Bench, had dinner with him October of last year. Had dinner with him and got to hang out with him for a few hours. So that, that was an amazing event, that a friend of mine is actually neighbors with him. And she was able to put that together for me.
Okay. All right. So you've been able to do, some pretty, I don't want to say amazing things. I mean, just, many of us are never going to have the chance to meet Jimmy Carter twice, have dinner with a Johnny Bench, but you were going through all of this stuff. And when did the turnaround actually happen? I remember seeing on the Facebook where you got the miracle car and all of this stuff, but
yeah,
what exactly the best way that you can describe it? What happened?
Okay, well, on November 3rd of last year, my wife and I attended a prayer and healing encounter with Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and he's a world-renowned cardiologist that actually lives in Palm Beach County.
Okay.
And he had been my doctor since 2014 because I'd had a few heart issues just because of all the stress on my body. And so I just used to see him just for checkups and everything. And he'd prayed for me. He's a Christian man who just loves the Lord and loves helping people. And he had prayed for me many times. And I used to say, you prayed for me, and yet we don't see results. And he said, Todd, it's all in God's timing. He said, he's using you in such a way during this journey that your healing may not come till heaven. And I was okay with that. Like, I never had an issue with that. And so on November 3rd, we had been invited to a healing service that he was conducting. And really, I went because I had about 50 people that I had invited, and there was a lot of folks that needed healing. And I didn't go with any expectations that I was going to receive any healing. I went with a lot of expectations that my friends would. And so we went, and as we were standing there, and he had shared a little bit, he said, anybody that wants to come forward for prayer, for healing, come forward. So I stood up, and I just stood there for a few minutes. And I didn't audibly hear the word of God, God's voice, but I heard him speak to my spirit and say, what are you doing? What are you just standing there for? This whole night I created just for you. And so I went forward. He prayed over me. Another gentleman prayed over me. And within minutes, I had my voice back. I had an appetite for the first time in almost 4 years. And the pain that I was in was gone. And I had my first meal that night. in about 4 years. And ever since then, it's just, I'm still not back to normal. I still have some different issues that I deal with, but I mean, nothing compared to what I was dealing with at that time.
Now, were you still with the voice box and the feeding tube at that time?
Still with the voice box, still with the feeding tube. I left that meeting that night without the voice box. My voice came back strong. I was a little hoarse for a few weeks, just because I hadn't been using the muscles that much. But the feeding tube, it's an interesting story about the feeding tube, is in November when we came back from being in Plains, Georgia, I had caught pneumonia, and I was about 2 weeks after my healing, and I had to be put in the hospital for a few days. And while I was there, I asked my doctor, I said, hey, while I'm here, can I just have this feeding tube taken out? Because I'm not using the feeding tube anymore. And he goes, well, we'll have the surgeon look at it. So the surgeon who put the feeding tube in came in, and he said, well, I got to look at it first. And when he touched the feeding tube, it literally fell out in his hand. He said he's never seen anything like that in his life. And that saved me 2 extra days in the hospital.
Wow.
So I've been eating and talking with my regular voice since November 3rd.
All right. So obviously a big change.
Yes.
And from what you're saying, unexpected.
Yes.
And how did, I'm sure there was something in your mind that said, okay, how long will this last before I start reverting?
Yeah. I mean, and even today, if I wake up and I'm feeling a little off, sometimes, my mind goes back to, okay, well, is this it? Go back, and God just reminds me that, hey, you're fine. You're going to be fine. And regardless if I end up getting sick in the future with another issue or the issues come back, I'm okay with the life that he's given me and the opportunities that he's given me.
All right. So we mentioned running at the beginning of the show because I really was expecting to go and see you in a race, and sorry that I missed it, but how long had it been between the runs? Because I know that it was quite some time.
Yeah, it had been 10 and a half years.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the last time I ran was in, about 10, yeah, because the last time I ran was in early March of 2009.
Okay. All right. Now, to bring this back full circle with people, you weren't a runner at PBA.
No, I had run a little bit in high school, but not much.
All right. You lived in the athletic dorms, but you weren't an athlete.
I was a wannabe athlete. I had, it's like all of us. I mean, we all of us played sports, as kids and stuff like that. But no, I was not. I was definitely not at PBA for my athletic ability.
Right. Neither was I, but I just pretended like I was with the basketball team. So
yeah.
All right. So, and now also I should probably have said, so we did attend PBA, but we're not from the same class. You are 2 years behind me, right?
I'm 90. I'm 91.
Okay. I'm 89.
Okay. Yeah.
And so we knew a lot of the same people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a small school. You had to know.
At that point, it was a small school. Yeah.
Yeah. It's now a university. It was a college when we attended.
Right.
And they had actually capped the student enrollment at 1,500.
Yeah.
Which I don't know what it is now, but it's a full-blown university. And
I think it's over 3,000 now.
Okay. All right. And so you had known some of the people that I knew. We didn't run around in circles together. You knew. Well,
I knew Babs Barr, which you knew.
Babs Barr, my secretary from student government.
Right, because her boyfriend at that time, now husband, Tim Tate, was one of my roommates.
Okay. Yep. Babs, we're calling you out.
Yeah.
Just so that you know, because this will also be an intro to get some other PBA folks on
Good.
the show as well. So who else? Well, let's start with who have you been in touch with since? I know that when we went to dinner, we went out with Tom McGuire and his wife.
Yeah, and I've kind of lost touch with them.
Yeah.
But still stay in touch with Tim Tate and Babs Barr, who's now, of course, Babs Tate, and Ben Starling, which we knew him as Benji.
You knew him as Benji.
And
I didn't meet Ben until I went to an event at PBA.
Okay.
I forget which event, and I sat next to him, and I sat next to another gentleman who, when he attended, he was student government president, so he was relishing in the fact that he had met me because I guess he had seen some videos and was quite excited. We won't talk about the videos.
You're not going to post those?
I have a picture. I'll post a picture, and I'll see if anybody can recognize it.
Okay.
Do that.
But yeah, I think, I mean, like I said, we didn't run in too many of the same circles. We just, like you said, it was so small that everybody, at least if you brought a name up, you had heard of the name.
Right.
You know, you may have not, maybe you didn't know them, but you knew that they attended school there.
Right. And of course, now the dorm you guys were at was
Wayenberg,
which kind of like Kathy dorm, it was officially off campus. but our campus was ours was right next to the cafeteria there. Wasn't that Dobbs?
Dobbs was a little further down.
Okay.
But we were right next to the
right.
Cafeteria.
Okay, Wayenberg was in between the
parking lot and Borbay Hall
when they built East Campus, right?
Right, Borbay Hall there, yeah.
Borbay, okay, that's it. Borbay was the little one, right? The little house that all the
that was the building. Borbay Hall was the building where like almost all the classes took place when we were there.
Okay, Borbay was the classroom. But what was the little house, the little girl house that was?
Oh, that was Northwood.
Northwood, okay.
Yeah. Which is now part of the library and the green complex, the sports complex.
What did they do? Tear something down? What was?
They've torn everything down. The funeral home's gone. Northwood's gone. All that stuff is gone. The school bought all that, and that's where the green complex is where they play basketball and volleyball at now. And then where the funeral home was at is now a student parking lot.
Okay.
And next to that is a athletic field for lacrosse and soccer. Just to play around, not official, because they've got the green. They got the whole sports
near 95, right?
Right. In my old neighborhood where I grew up.
Okay. Wait a minute. Your old neighborhood?
Yeah, I grew up in that neighborhood. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Born and raised in West Palm. Yeah.
What was I forget. Oh, I wish I knew. Tom Cleanscale would know the street that we lived on, which was down. What was that comedy club and the pizza place?
Oh, the Carefree.
Yeah, the Carefree and the Ambrosius, because we lived a couple of streets behind there.
Yeah, well, Carefree's gone now.
Carefree's gone?
Yeah, they've torn that down. They're going to put up, I think, shopping and apartments.
Oh, my goodness. West Palm is tearing everything down. I wish they'd tear down Kathy Dorm. That's still there.
Yeah, that's still there. And it's still being used by retirement community. It's a retirement home now.
Oh, did you see somebody had put on, they have, or still had, I don't know if it's a picture, that they just pretended, or they still have their I Survive Kathy Dorm t-shirt.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure.
I wish I could find out who that was. Folks, if anybody listening or watching, you know who that was. I didn't, I needed to mark it as a saved item and I forgot.
Yeah, I'm not sure who that would be.
Yeah. So for those who, let me give you a brief synopsis of Kathy Dorm. Some nights we couldn't sleep because of the rats.
Mm. I never
And
stayed. I never had to live there. Thank goodness.
yeah. And I think once a semester, my mom had to send me money to replace the battery out of my car.
Sounds about
And
right.
and it was so bad, we couldn't allow students to walk from Kathy dorm
Right.
to the campus, which was, I don't know, was about less than a mile. So we
Yeah.
actually had a shuttle service that we had to start because it was too bad to walk, even to the McDonald's that was
Oh
in.
yeah. Yeah.
So that was my college, folks. Yes, it's West Palm, but
Yeah. It
it
was
wasn't
not.
the West Palm
No. Not the ones that they put on the "Come Visit West Palm."
or
Uh,
Palm Beach, I should say. It's not Palm Beach.
no. No. Definitely not.
Palm Beach was across the Intracoastal. And one thing you never want to do if you're in Palm Beach is run without your shirt.
I think you can do that now.
Really?
I think so. I think
Okay.
they've loosened the restrictions there a little bit.
Okay. that was probably one of that was not such a good day for me. I was not happy. And
No, I'm sure not.
of course I accused them of some stuff that probably they weren't doing, but I didn't realize that there was actually an ordinance where you couldn't wear a shirt. I just thought that,
Yeah.
black man in Palm Beach. But, so, all right. So anything else that's been happening since November 3rd? I mean,
well, yeah. I mean, amazing story is, and you saw it on my Facebook, but when I started really getting sick in 2009, probably about 2010, 2011, I was at a point where I just wasn't physically able to drive. And so I gave my truck away to my niece, who needed a vehicle. So last December, I started driving again for the first time in years. And a few families found out, had heard my story, and someone mentioned, oh yeah, Todd can't make it to this event because his wife's got to work and they've just got the one car. And they're like, well, what do you mean? Why doesn't he have a car? So they shared the story with them, and they're like, oh, well, we'll take care of that. So about 2 months ago now, a family called me up and said, hey, meet us at the dealership by your house. And I'm like, well, what dealership is that? And they're like, oh, the BMW dealership. So I thought, well, I'm sure they have more than BMWs there. It's a car dealership. And so I get there, and these three families came together and bought me a 2017 BMW.
Mm.
So, but what's interesting, this is the first night that I drove in December. When I got behind the wheel, I felt God telling me, don't buy a car. Someone's going to give you a car. And I was like, okay, well, I don't care if it's a 20-year-old car or brand new. It doesn't matter to me. And so 2 months ago, three families went together and bought me a vehicle.
Yeah, and it's a nice looking car.
It is. I'm still trying to figure it all out.
All right. So that had to be, I don't know. I don't want to say overwhelming, but to have somebody do that much.
Right. And this is right before the this is right when the pandemic was starting.
Right.
So people were concerned about their finances and worried about what their businesses were going to look like. And I even said, hey, we can wait until this pandemic's over. I said, I'm not in that big of a rush. And they're like, no, we want to do it now. We don't want you not having a vehicle. So
now, are these?
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you if these people were, friends, or are they people from church or from the hospital, or had seen your story?
They're three guys that I do a Bible study with, but I had just joined that Bible study. Like I haven't been there for years or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew them a little bit, but not enough to say, hey, let's do dinner together or anything like that. But they just felt God calling them to do it, and that's what they wanted to do. So, and the next week they actually bought a single mom with a daughter. They bought her a vehicle.
Are you doing Bible study on Palm Beach?
No. So just, just blessed, and, just blessed that, God's put me around people who, for whatever reason, find my story encouraging and want to be part of it, and, want to, just help me out. And one thing, I don't think I've shared this, online or anything like this. So this will be breaking news for your show there, Marv, is that, probably in June, we've been filming, there's been a group of people filming a documentary on my life, and that's probably going to be released in June.
Oh, okay.
So it's just gonna kind of take over where the book left off.
Okay. Do you already have a title for it?
We're still looking. I don't know if I want to use a blessed overcomer again, or use something else. So,
the man who refuses to die.
That could be a possibility.
You got room in there for me to do a cameo? Can do a walk-on part?
Hey, you knew me before. You knew me before I was sick, so you would be.
I could be the narrator.
Hey, there you go. So I'll talk to them about that. We do have somebody in mind for that, but if that person doesn't want to do it, I will definitely give you a call.
All right. Well, you're not going to have that trouble. People are going to want to do stuff, so don't worry about me.
Well, we will keep you updated on everything that's going on. So yeah, so like right now we got like 96 videos of interviews and stuff like that they're going over. So
all right, you're going to treat it like The Last Dance, like Michael Jordan. You're going to have old clips and stuff, and
yeah. I'll see if ESPN will show a tired old runner that's still trying to relive his glory in some ways with running.
Yeah. Okay. Anything's possible, right? So I'm going to say this. This is something where I told you before when I, had you on the other podcast, that this is the type of story that I think people want to hear, people need to hear. But it's also something that I do want to tell you, that one of the reasons that I think things have happened to you the way that they happen is because of the mental fortitude that you've had to, one, be comfortable with what's happening around you and not blame out anybody, not lash out or anything like that, but to take the stance of being an inspiration. And one of the things that I think got re-ingrained with me from your story is, to always be strong, because you never know who's watching and who you will be an inspiration to. So I think that obviously, the people that you were in that Bible study with, you weren't friends with them for very long before they sensed what was inside of you and what was, I don't want to say magnificent. I'm struggling for a word there, but they saw something and they knew that they needed to help, and they did. And I think that other people along your journey have all seen that and have all pitched in.
Yeah, it's definitely, this whole journey has definitely been a group effort. Like, everybody from medical to just family and friends, a great wife who, when people ask me, what is the greatest thing about receiving your healing? They expect me to say, oh, I'm running again, or, oh, I can drive again, I can eat again. But the greatest thing is that for from about 2009 until my healing, Laura used to have this stick in the house. And every morning, if I wasn't awake when she went to work, she would poke me with that stick to make sure that I was still alive. because my breathing was so shallow and so labored at that point, that sometimes she's like, I couldn't tell if you were breathing. So every morning she would poke me with this little stick. And if she saw me move, she's like, okay, I can go to work and I at least know he's alive at this point, you know? And then of course I would have to text her when I got up to let her know I was up, you know? So she doesn't have that stick anymore. You know, we were able to throw that stick out.
Well, good.
And, you know, so that's the greatest thing about this, you know, about this healing is, you know, my wife doesn't have to wonder every day, you know, is he going to be alive when I wake up, or is he going to be alive when I get home from work?
Wow.
So she's a true hero in all this. I'm just kind of the sideshow, you know. She's the main attraction.
So I should probably take that as an opportunity to reference the book. Now, you know, it's titled The Blessed Overcomer, The Crazy, Beautiful Journey of Todd and Laura Shoemaker. So Laura contributed to this book a lot.
Yes.
I think at the end of every chapter, is it every chapter where she gives her perspective on, what she went through as well?
Right. Yeah, that was part of the, you know, when we were talking to the publishers, I had two conditions that I said you have to say yes to, or I'll have to find somebody else. One was Laura had to share her part of the story as much as she wanted to. And because, I mean, she's been with me since the beginning of all this, and caregivers tend to be forgotten when someone's going through a health issue, because all the attention's on the patient and the caregiver kind of gets forgotten, and they're going through, like I used to tell everybody, my job was really easy because the doctors would say, you can do this, this, and this, and you can't do that. So I kind of had a playbook of how to get through this. With a caregiver, there is no playbook, you know, for them to reference. It's every day. What are we going to face today? Because maybe today Todd wakes up and can't breathe, and what do I do? You know, so, and the second thing was I wanted to put my phone number and email address at the end of the book, because I wanted people to feel free and comfortable to reach out to Laura and I if they were going through whatever, whether it was a health issue or just a life storm. I wanted them to know that there were people out there that would take their phone call, would walk the journey with them, and give them, you know, all the guidance that we could give.
So definitely, I'm going to put a link to the book in the show notes. I'm going to put it on the Facebook page after the video goes live, and on the YouTube page as well. So for people that want to go to Amazon and purchase the book, you can do that. But Todd, I want to go back and make sure I don't look at Laura as just simply a caregiver in this whole journey. Basically,
Right.
When I've seen her, it's more of a partner. This is
yes.
you and her standing together, facing whatever you guys face. I never saw her as a caregiver. Now, obviously, that's, you know, part of it, but
Yeah.
you know, I didn't see or sense from her that was her role. Her role was to be your partner.
Yes, and I, you know, and I just use caregiver just as a word, you know, a phrase that people recognize. But yeah,
Right.
she was a partner, cheerleader, chauffeur, you know, pretty much every role that you can think of, she's played. But yeah, most importantly, you know, it's just a partnership, you know, and, you know, we always believe that it's not a 50-50 thing. It's 100. She gave 100% and I've given 100%. So for us, it's never been a 50-50 thing. It's been her 100% and my 100%, and just trying to, you know, just trying to navigate through all this, because, you know, when you're in your 30s and you're told that you have cancer and you may not make it, and you've only been married a few years, you don't know, you know, like, you know, people that have had cancer, and you know people that have been sick, but it's one of those things that until you start walking through it, it's easy to say, well, I understand and everything. but nobody knows how to navigate, and we had nobody to help navigate us through all the medical jargon and everything like that. So that's, we decided a long time ago, if as long as God has me here on earth, we were going to play that role for whoever needed us to play that role of figuring out the medical.
Beautiful, beautiful. So let me ask this. Have you made any big plans going forward? Anything, because the last time you had some big news, well, I shouldn't say the last time, but you usually follow up, news with something big, skydiving, stuff like that. So what's on the horizon for you?
I'm just not, I'm not really sure. I think it's, I think the opportunities to be able to share my story more are gonna be out there. And I started, and I think you're aware that I've started a unofficial, I don't even know I guess you can call it a ministry, where we have a group of folks that go to the hospitals throughout Palm Beach County, and we pray outside the hospitals, whether we know somebody that's in there or not. We try to do that once or twice a week. Right. And, that's been a blessing, because especially during this time, we've been able to pray a lot for nurses and medical staff that are coming in and leaving the hospital. We've been able to pray for them and thank them for all that they're doing. So that's kind of the thing that I'm doing right now, and just looking at opportunities just to serve others. That's always been my big thing, is serving others. And now that I physically can do more than I was able to do in the past, I just think that is going to, my serving is just going to increase.
All right. So I noticed that, I go to your Facebook page all the time, and you can find Todd's Facebook page at Todd O.C. Shoemaker. And then you still doing the blog at the blessedovercomer.org?
Yes, still doing that.
Okay, so I'll put the links for that, so anybody that wants to go over and take a peek at what Todd's been doing and follow his future endeavors. Any other things, any other places to have people go, or?
Those are the two main ones. And then I do have a Facebook page called The Blessed Overcomer that they can go to.
Okay.
Also on Facebook, and on both Todd O.C. Shoemaker and The Blessed Overcomer on Twitter and on Instagram.
Okay. Oh, you're the social media mogul, Twitter and the IG.
So yeah, so
you should start doing some TikTok videos.
Yeah. So but yeah, I mean, years ago, God really, because when I first got sick, Marvin, I didn't want anybody to know. I told Laura, I said, nobody needs to know. We'll get through this. But I realized, one, that was a big strain on her, and two, I needed to be able to share with people so people knew how to pray for me and what they could do to help Laura. And whether that was just coming by and hanging out with me so she could go do some arts and crafts, or just go to the beach or whatever. So, but once I started doing that, I said, what, I think I'm just going to start sharing my story in a public way, and hopefully will encourage one person. If one person says, hey, I'm encouraged by that guy's story, then I've done my job.
Well, and that's the way to live. Like I said, you never know who's watching and who you can inspire. So folks, that's a lesson. Let your life be an inspiration to others, regardless of your situation.
Well, and Marvin, we all have a story to tell, but it's up to us to tell that story. Nobody, nobody else can tell our story but us. And, some people say, well, Todd, you got an amazing story to tell. Well, all of us have an amazing story to tell. We just have to believe that our stories are amazing and feel free to share those with others.
Well, even if you don't believe it's amazing, you share it.
Yes.
Because that's the one thing I do know is that every story means something to somebody. So
Right.
sorry, there's a freaking gnat flying around my head.
That's
Sorry
okay.
about that.
That's fine.
So, this is not the professional studio.
I used to do those movements all the time, but I couldn't control them.
Right. All right. Well, so I tell Laura, sorry she couldn't be with us. I should have made it a point to say that she should pop on, and we'll do that. But we'll save that for when the documentary gets released. So
maybe you can have her on one night and just let her be the rock star that she is on your show.
Absolutely. That's my goal, is to have everybody I've ever come in contact with be on this show at some point.
Yeah.
So that'll be great. All right. So folks, Todd, the Blessed Overcomer Shoemaker, Todd, the OC, the real OC, I put in one of the titles. Thank you very much for coming on again. And
thank you so much for having me.
And
thanks for having me.
Sorry that I didn't, make it an effort. Like I said, I knew I wanted to watch you when the one race was coming up, but then the pandemic hit and all this stuff. So
I do, my next race that hopefully will happen after all this flows through will be in October, one that they had to reschedule from late March. So I'll keep you updated on that.
All right. And you'll let me know when the documentary comes out.
Yes.
And when we get lifted from our stay-at-home orders, we'll probably just pop up there and say hello at some point anyway. Yeah. All right. I'll have to, me, you, Laura, and Kim can all hang out.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right, Todd, thank you very much. Folks, thank you for watching. And if you're listening to the Uncle Marv podcast, you have just heard Todd Shoemaker, my friend from Palm Beach Atlantic University. And we will obviously be keeping tabs on him. And as updates come up for the documentary and other stuff, we will get him back on. So thank you very much, Todd.
Thank you so much for having me. God bless.
All right. Everybody else, have a good night. And until next time, holla.